Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Ruttamaśloke Bhaktir Naishtikim Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. Welcome everyone. Today we are reading from Canto 2, Chapter 3 of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Pure Devotional Service Change of Heart. Text 21. I've shared my screen so that all of you can see. I'll recite this verse 2-3-21. Bharaparam patta kirita justam apyuttamangam naname mukundam savaukarau no kurute saparyam harer lasat kanchana kankana uva. Read once again. Bharaparam patta kirita justam apyuttamangam naname mukundam Savaukarau na kurute saparyam harer lasat kanchana kankanauva. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The upper portion of the body, though covered or crowned with a silk turban, is only a heavy burden if not bowed down before the personality of Godhead, who can award mukti, freedom. And the hands, though decorated with glittering bangles, are like those of a dead man if not engaged in the service of the personality of Godhead, Hari. Purport. As stated herein before, there are three kinds of devotees of the Lord. The first class devotee does not at all see anyone who is not in the service of the Lord. But the second class devotee makes distinctions between devotees and non-devotees. The second class devotees are therefore meant for preaching work and are referred to in the above verse. They must loudly preach the glories of the Lord. The second class devotee accepts disciples from the section of the third class devotees or non-devotees. Sometimes the first class devotee also comes down to the category of the second class devotee for preaching work. But the common man, who is expected to become at least a third-class devotee, is advised herein to visit the temple of the Lord and bow down before the deity, even though he may be a very rich man or even a king with a silk turban or crown. The Lord is the Lord of everyone, including the great kings and emperors, and men who are rich in the estimation of mundane people must therefore make it a point to visit the temple of Lord Sri Krishna and regularly bow down before the deity. The Lord in the temple, in the worshipable form, is never to be considered to be made of stone or wood, for the Lord is in his Archa incarnation as the deity in the temple shows immense favor to the fallen souls by his auspicious presence. By the hearing process, as mentioned herein before, this realization of the presence of the Lord in the temple is made possible. As such, the first process in the routine work of devotional service, hearing, is the essential point. Hearing by all classes of devotees from the authentic sources like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam is essential. The common man who is puffed up with his material position and does not bow down before the deity of the Lord in the temple, or who defies temple worship without any knowledge of the science, must know that his so-called turban or crown will only succeed in further drowning him in the water of the ocean of material existence. A drowning man with a heavy weight on his head is sure to go down more swiftly than those who have no heavy weight. A foolish, puffed up man defies the science of God and says that God has no meaning for him. But when he is in the grip of God's law and is caught by some disease like cerebral thrombosis, that godless man sinks into the ocean of nations by the weight of his material acquisition. Advancement of material science without God consciousness is a heavy load on the head of human society. And so one must take heed of this great warning. The common man, if he has no time to worship the Lord, may at least engage his hands for a few seconds in washing or sweeping the Lord's temple. Maharaj Prataprudra, the greatly powerful king of Orissa, was always very busy with heavy state responsibilities. Yet he made it a point to sweep the temple of Lord Jagannath at Puri once a year during the festival of the Lord. The idea is that however important a man one may be, he must accept the supremacy of the Supreme Lord. This God consciousness will help a man even in his material prosperity. Maharaj Pratapradra's subordination before Lord Jagannath made him a powerful king. So much so that even a great Patan in his time could not enter into Orissa on account of the powerful Maharaj Prataprudra. And at last, Maharaj Prataprudra was praised by Lord Sri Chaitanya on the very grounds of his acceptance of subordination of the Lord of the universe. So even though a rich man's wife has glittering bangles made of gold on her hands, she must engage herself in rendering service to the Lord. So a little long purport. I'll read the translation once again. The upper portion of the body, though crowned with a silk turban, is only a heavy burden if not bowed down before the personality of Godhead, who can award mukti, freedom. And the hands, though decorated with glittering bangles, are like those of a dead man, if not engaged in the service of the personality of Godhead. So this particular section of Srimad Bhagavatam is speaking so many beautiful verses, actually, starting from, I think, 2.10 or so. So Saunaka asks questions, and these are all spoken by Saunaka Rishi in response to what he heard from Sutta Goswami as a conversation between Parikshit and Sukadeva Goswami. So here he is questioning various things like if the ear holes are not used for hearing the glories of the Lord Vishnu, then they are like the ear holes of a snake. Then he compares various things like, bellows of the blacksmith and, like various animals. There's so many things he says. So the idea is that the human form of life is basically useless if we do not worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is what is being highlighted in this section. And as we progress, there are even more beautiful verses, I think 3 to 23 is the verse which speaks about the chanting of the holy names. Like this, there are many other verses which are often quoted by many preachers. Those are given in this particular section. And basically, if we see the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the first chapter of second canto discusses about the first steps of God realization. There mostly the Brahman realization is covered, how the Lord is spread all throughout the universe. And in the second chapter, the Lord in the heart, I think that mostly covers about the Ashtanga Yoga process, which is the sadhana for attaining the Paramatma realization. And this particular chapter, the third chapter, is speaking about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Brahman. So the Bhagavan realization is spoken in this particular chapter. And we can understand, like, when Bhagavan has to be attained, then bhakti is the only means. Bhagavad Gita very clearly says that Krishna himself says that bhaktyama vamishanati yavan yasyasmi tattvataha. So there is no other way by which we can actually understand the Supreme personality of Godhead. Only through bhakti it is possible. So, and it is also said in Srimad Bhagavatam in the first canto that Jnanam, Vairagyam, these two are the components of bhakti. So when bhakti arises in one's heart, then we will experience knowledge as well as renunciation, knowledge about the material and spiritual worlds and the nature of God, nature of soul, all these things. And based on that knowledge, there will be renunciation also, renunciation from the material pleasures. I'm trying to remember that verse which says, I'm sorry, I'm not able to recollect that. It says that the transformation in heart is actually expressed through the renunciation of the material pleasure. So this is the standard. I think in 3:2:23 also, sorry, 2:3:23, that verse also in Bhagavatam, Prabhupada actually clearly says about what are the ashtavikar that actually happen in the personality of a devotee. But then he also says that, these are not to be considered as a signs of advancement. Rather, he gives another list of 8 symptoms of bhava. Those are to be considered as the signs of advancement. Like, the devotee doesn't have any interest in the material pleasures. He doesn't waste any time. So many things he mentions there. So these are something which are very tangible, which are observable. And the kind of ashtavikar which are there, like, standing of hair on the body, then trembling of the body, and then choking of voice, these can be imitated also. That's what Prabhupada mentions there. So basically, one should try to understand, or one should try to gauge one's advancement in spiritual life by how much he has actually renounced the material pleasures, or how much he is unaffected by the pleasures of the material world. So to that extent, he will be fit to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So in Bhagavad Gita also there is a shloka which says, in the 6th chapter, it says, Jitatmana Prashantasya Paramatma Samashita. So mind is something like, it's like a compressed spring. Like we compress the spring and keep it here, then it will stay here. As soon as you release the compression, then it goes to the other end, right? So by default, mind has to be absorbed in something. Either it is material pleasure or it is spiritual pleasure. And we can see, so mind is constantly, the nature of mind is to become absorbed, right? So I would like to give the example of evolution of television. We can see in the olden days, like when we were children, like in 80s, 90s, at that time, in the television, especially, in India, they used to have this manual channel control. Like you just go to various channels. And even before that, there was only one channel. That was Doordarshan, right? And a movie used to come on Sunday evenings, and the whole family sit together, watch the movie. And there was no other option to see anything else. At that time, people were also much more peaceful, although they were trying to find out material pleasure. When it comes to Sunday evening, they were all like, come together, sit together, as if kind of some temple worship or something. And earlier to TV's advent, of course, people used to gather in the temples. They used to hear some Harikatha. They used to sing some bhajans, and then go back to their homes. I remember my grandmother used to do that regularly, often. She used to go to the temple in the evenings and participate in some Harikatha, and then comes back after around 8 o'clock or so. And Sunday evenings, this was the routine that Doordarshan, we have one channel. Now there was this was the only option which was available. But over a period of time, after a few years, this cable connection has come, right? Now people have more choices, right? So here, what I wanted to say is, like, if we consider the Sunday evening Doordarshan program to be the only one program which was available at that time. People were very absorbed in that one program. But over a period of time, people were given choice. There are 8 or 10 channels, and you keep rotating that manual. I don't know what to call, frequency changer, whatever. So when that came, then people started looking at various things. Again, here also mind is absorbed, but then the absorption started, to change from one channel to various channels. Now, they have been given so many choices where they can absorb in various things. And then fights in the family also started to grow. Brother and sister used to fight. I want this channel, I want that channel. And sometimes elders also used to fight that, this channel is more interesting. This movie I haven't seen. And after that, we got, color TV sets, and then remote control. Now there are a couple of 100 channels. And what has happened to the human being? They, more than seeing one channel, they start moving from one channel to another channel to another channel. And they keep on scrolling like this, keep on scrolling, right? And today what we have in our hand is like in a handheld device, like a mobile phone, can give so much information, so many channels, so many things to watch, so many things to hear. And now we can see how absorption in one thing has changed to, it was a long-term absorption in one thing. Like, on Sunday evenings, it was a long-term absorption in one channel of the TV. Now it has changed from long-term absorption to short-term absorption in various things, right? Here, 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 here. And that's why we see people become more stressed after watching TV. In the earlier days, it was more like, watching TV was an entertainment. But today it is more stressful because, there are so many options that can offer us pleasure, and so many options to watch, because of which people keep changing from channel to channel to channel to channel. And then we also see that the absorption of human being has, in one thing, like the mind getting absorbed in one thing has gone totally. And that's why WHO has announced also, for this entire century, the greatest, illness is mental related illness, because now people have so many options to go from one pleasure to another pleasure. And for that point, I would say, like, absorbing in one material pleasure is much better than hopping from one pleasure to another pleasure, because that gives us more and more anxiety. Long-term absorption in one kind of material pleasure is much better than so many short-term absorptions, right? Similarly, if we just extend it to the spiritual life, we can compare material and spiritual pleasures also in the same way. Short-term absorption in spiritual activities or spiritual pleasure is far, far superior than long-term absorption in material pleasure. So in this sense, we can see how our modern technological advancement has made us more and more crazy and more absorbed in short-term pleasures. People nowadays are simply hopping from one thing to another thing to another thing, and we see that as a common thing in our children also. They can't stick to one thing, they skip. And this is not only when it comes to TV or video games. This has become more or less like their personality trait. Like everyone is like, having very short-term attention span, right? They have only very short-term attention. And even many like motivational speakers, and they also say that, even the psychologists, they say that a human being can have an absorption span of, an attention span of around 20-25 minutes nowadays. But we can see in the example of Shukadeva Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj. Parikshit Maharaj was absorbed for 7 long days without anything, without any other distraction. Similarly, Shukadeva Goswami was also absorbed for such a long time in speaking Srimad Bhagavatam. Now, in this particular purport, Prabhupada actually says towards the end of the first paragraph here, a foolish puffed up man defies the science of God and says that God has no meaning for him, But when he is in nescience, by the weight of his, where is it? But when he is in the grip of God's law and is caught by some disease like cerebral thrombosis, that godless man sinks into the ocean of nescience by the weight of his material acquisition. This statement is what I wanted to highlight. Advancement of material science without God consciousness is a heavy load on the head of human society, and so one must take heed of this great warning. So the more we keep advancing in material science without God consciousness, that is only adding to our burden. It is not actually reducing our burden. And that's why we see that in the last century, we had so much of scientific advancement, but there is no happiness. Earlier people were much more happier than what we can imagine today, right? Because they were happy with simple things. Today we have complicated our lives so much that it is impossible to find out what actually makes us happy. We are trying to agitate our mind so much, because of which we want to engage in various things, one after the other, and that is what is actually driving us to more suffering than happiness. And unfortunately, we are thinking that this kind of lifestyle, this kind of mental engagement is what is going to give us pleasure. But on the other hand, it is actually giving us more anxiety, more pain, more stress, right? So basically, all this is happening because we actually forgot what is the purpose. What is the purpose of human life? Not only, I mean, we in the sense, not only the few people who are in this Zoom call. In general, human being has forgotten his purpose, and because of he forgot his purpose, he also lost connection with nature. He also lost connection with his inner self. And people have become kind of, more than purpose driven. They have become more pleasure driven. And this is the theme of today. Today's talk. I wanted to highlight on this particular theme, taking some examples from Ramayana as well as Mahabharata. What is the purpose and what is the pleasure, and how do people behave when they are purpose driven, and how do people behave when they are pleasure driven, right? So the example of Sugriva in Ramayana. Tomorrow we are celebrating Ram Navami. I thought this is appropriate to quote meditate on some stories of Ramayana. So basically, Sugriva was he made friendship with Lord Ramchandra, and both of them had some need. Sugriva wanted his kingdom back, and Lord Rama was seeking some help from some alliance from someone who can help him in bringing back Sita, right? So in these two, they both wanted to help each other mutually. But then when Lord Ramchandra killed Vali and gave back Sugriva his kingdom, at that time, what did Sugriva do? He actually went into the pleasure-driven mode, right? He forgot what he promised. It was not intentional, but it was just happening because he was so much absorbed in pleasure that he totally forgot the promise that he gave to Lord Ramchandra. And because for 4 months there was this rainy season, and that was a good for him it was a good excuse that he was unable to find Sita, and actually he was not intending to do like that. He just was carried away. He was driven away from the kingdom for a long period of time, and now he got a chance to enjoy the pleasures of the kingdom, and because of which he just got lost. He just got carried away. Because of being carried away, he forgot what was the purpose. He forgot what his promise was, because now he became more pleasure centered, right? And his counselors who were in fact, if we go to Hampi today, there is this one cave where we will find Lord Ramchandra's deity in a meditating posture. I think this is the only place in the world where Lord Ramchandra is sitting and meditating. He was actually meditating on Mother Sita during the 4 months of this rainy season, and that cave is still there. So basically, Lord Ramchandra was feeling so much separation from Sita, but then he sends Lakshman. He sends Lakshman to find out what happened to the search party of Sugriva. But then by that time, Sugriva was so much engrossed in pleasure, and he totally forgot the purpose or the promise that he has made to Lord Ramchandra. Then there were these counselors of Sugriva who reminded him. One was Hanuman, and the other was Tara. Tara was the wife of Vali, who became wife of Sugriva later once Vali was killed. So they both actually counseled Sugriva, and they said, like, you should not be doing this. You should actually try to find out where is Mother Sita. Then immediately Sugriva came back to his senses, because he was not intending to do this. It was just unintentional, because he was just carried away by the pleasures of the kingdom. And after being counseled like this, he actually calls for all the Vanara soldiers from all over the world, and he just dispatches them to different places to find out where Mother Sita was. So here in this particular story, we can clearly see that when we try to remember pleasure, then we lose focus on our purpose. And when we try to remember the purpose, then we lose taste for our pleasure, right? So this also actually continues, where Sugriva was also got another similar offer like this, to become pleasure driven. Actually, that was when Lord Ramchandra and all the Vanara soldiers go to Sri Lanka to fight with Ravana. At that time, Ravana sends a messenger to Sugriva, because Sugriva was the monkey king. So he sends a messenger to Sugriva saying that, with a lot of ornaments, lot of gifts, and he says, this messenger says to Sugriva that, we Rakshasas do not have any enmity with you Vanaras. The only enmity was with Lord Ramchandra. And that too because of Sita. So why should we fight? Instead of fighting, let us be friends. At that time, Sugriva was already very determined to serve Lord Ramchandra. He has seen Lord Ramchandra and his character. That Lord Ramchandra already offered his shelter to Vibhishan, and he has seen the prowess of Lord Ramchandra. So at that time, Sugriva actually denies. He says that because you have stolen Mother Sita, you have become my enemy also. That kind of message Sugriva sends. You have become not only Lord Ramchandra's enemy, you have become my enemy also, because Lord Ramchandra is my friend. So here in this example, we can see how Sugriva, although got tempted the same way like earlier, he was not carried away by the temptation, because by this time he has understood what is the nature of the Lord. And he also understood what it is like taking shelter of Lord Ramchandra. Lord Rama was able to give shelter to Vibhishan, who was the brother of Ravana, and he was able to create this whole Varadi on the ocean. And he has already seen the prowess of Lord Ramchandra, and he has more faith in Lord Ram. And his purpose was, like Vyavasayatmika Buddhi. He has only single pointed agenda, that was to bring back Sita. And because of which he was not actually disturbed by the allurements that were shown by Ravana. We can see a similar example in Mahabharata also. Like Pandavas, when they were in Agyatavas, not Agyatavas, when they were in Vanavas, when they were in the exile, they they actually go to the place in Malaya region from where they get an access to the heavenly forests of Kuvera. So they go into the forests of Kuvera, and Kuvera actually comes there to offer them a nice stay. And these heavenly forests were much more luxurious than the earthly forests. So, and Kuvera offers them, saying that, you can stay in this forest as long as you want. You don't have to go at any point of time unless you desire. So they stay there for some time. But then Arjuna and Bhima come to tell to Yudhishthir Maharaj that this is not the right place for us to stay, because here it is so much pleasurable. Here it is so luxurious compared to the earthly forest that we were living in. And if we are carried away by these pleasures, then we will lose the purpose of establishing dharma. Uh, um, Later they, of course, they got the kingdom and all that, and the purpose of getting their kingdom was to fulfill the desire of Lord Krishna to establish dharma, right? So based on the words of Arjuna and Bhima, Yudhishthir Maharaj also agrees. He says that yes, when we are driven by pleasure, then we will lose focus on the purpose. So based on their discussion, they actually return. Although they had no reason to return, they chose to return. Why? Because they were actually driven by the purpose of establishing dharma. Similarly, in our spiritual lives also, we always have to see what are we driven by. Sometimes we actually come into Krishna consciousness not driven by purpose, but still driven by pleasure. Many times we have this experience also. There are ulterior motives when we come to devotional service also, right? It's not that every devotee who comes to our movement or any other authentic authorized movement, they come there with the desire to become pure devotees of Krishna. They come with various motives. Sometimes, like I know when I was preaching to students in college, at that time many students used to get attracted to uh, uh, like the study hours that we were conducting, and also the tips to write the exams, and time management, and stress management. These are the kind of things they get attracted to. And we also see that over a period of time, some people actually understand, okay, these are secondary. The first is Krishna Prem. First is love of Godhead. When their purpose changes from ulterior material pleasures or material achievements to spiritual achievements, then they become steady devotees also. But then sometimes these students have, like vyavasayatmika buddhi, or undeviated intelligence in achieving big position. So when they are driven by such things, then they cannot become fixed on the spiritual purpose also. So they take advantage of whatever facilities that are being provided, and then they go back. They don't want to, even they chant also. They chant, because they knew that unless they chant, they are not given access to all these what do we call, tips and tricks on how to write exams and all that. So they chant, but the purpose of chanting was not to attain love of God. That was not even to remain peaceful. Their purpose was to gain some they want to fulfill their agenda of getting things done. So when they are driven by this, then they are actually they lose track, they lose focus on spiritual achievements. They simply are happy with whatever they gain through the whatever they gain through the association of devotees in terms of getting good grades, getting a facility to study and all that. Similarly, we also see this is not only at the level of students. Any devotee or any person who comes to our movement, or again for that matter any kind of authorized spiritual movement, they are driven by something. If we are not driven by the ultimate purpose of attaining Krishna Prem, or ultimate purpose of using this human form of life for what it is intended to be used for, then we are actually swayed away by the various pleasures and temptations that are actually given to us, that actually come on the path. So we can see, like in the example of Pandavas, when they actually got the kingdom, at that time also they were not pleasure driven. Although they were in exile for 13 years, they were not pleasure driven even at that time. They were simply looking for an opportunity to serve Krishna in whatever way possible, because Krishna wanted them to become the king. They also wanted to become kings, right? It's not because they wanted to enjoy the kingdom. That was never on their agenda, because of which Krishna wanted them to become the kings. And when they became kings, they were ruling the kingdom according to the desires of Lord Krishna. And not only that, when Krishna left the planet, they were not attached. They did not say that, okay, anyways, now we got the kingdom, let us enjoy this. No, that was not their purpose. They just left the kingdom. They just started walking towards the north. Yudhishthir Maharaj followed by all the Pandavas. They all leave the kingdom, right? So similarly, we also should understand that it is, when we have one pointed focus on the purpose that we want to achieve in our spiritual life, then it is very easy to overcome the pleasures. Basically, we can see that in spiritual life also there are so many adversities, so many obstacles, and these adversities are, they actually kind of put a stumbling block on our progress, right? And these problems have to be faced, and these have to be resolved. Like, for example, if someone is not able to follow the 4 regulative principles, or someone is not able to like chant the prescribed number of rounds, then these are considered to be adversities. These are considered to be obstacles on the path of spiritual life, and these have to be overcome by a good counsel. These have to be overcome by spiritual determination and all these things, right? But then in the spiritual life, we can see that even comfort is also an obstacle, right? So it's not that only adverse situations are obstacles, but the comfort is also obstacle, because comfort in spiritual life leads to complacency, and such comfort is actually an enemy in spiritual life. It's not that we should leave all the comforts, whatever have been destined or given to us by Krishna, but we should also learn to be grateful, and we should also learn to understand that, these are not because of my deservance. These are not because I deserve these comforts. These are because Krishna has gifted us with these comforts, that we are just accepting it. And when Krishna just takes it away, then we should not be attached also. We should not feel like, okay, it has been given to me, this is mine. So when that kind of mindset comes, then it is impossible to actually become spiritually determined or spiritually focused, right? So this is the crux of the whole thing. Comfort in spiritual life actually brings us complacency, and such comfort is actually an enemy to a spiritual practitioner. One should actually learn to use comfort in Krishna's service, not to get carried away by the comfort itself. And when we are carried away by such comforts of material life, then we actually tend to become in the previous verses, it was said, like, there are various animals which are living. We also become like that, because the animals do not have any other focus in life other than eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. These are the only 4 things that they know. And when we also try to find pleasure in those 4 things, then we are no better than animals. Dharmo hitesho adhiko visesho, dharmena hina pasubhis samana. So staying in comfort zone always will make us lose impetus to stay in tune with our purpose. When we simply when we are asked, what is more important for you, comfort or the purpose, then we should be leaning towards the purpose. Even if there is no comfort, I am ready to go with the purpose, not just by the comfort. And when we have that kind of determination, then it is possible to actually achieve our purpose. Otherwise, we just become like, it is said in the Bible also, I think Bible or Lost, Paradise Lost, I don't remember, one of these things, it is said like when Jesus takes the soul to the kingdom of God, on the way there are so many pleasures which come. We also read that in our scriptures also, that a soul passes through the heavenly planets and Brahma Loka and all these different portions of the universe. And if we want to stay there, then the soul is free to stay there and enjoy those pleasures. But then you won't get the kingdom of God, right? So similarly, in this world also, such temptations are there for all of us. And Maya is so expert that she has a custom-made trap for every living entity. And every living entity is actually trapped there. It's not that we will fall in trap. We are already in trap. And unless we learn to keep the purpose of attaining Krishna Prem at the center of our spiritual life, attaining service to the devotees, attaining pure chanting, these should be the goals of our spiritual life. If that is not the goal, then we have some other goal. We cannot remain without a goal. Actually, we have some goal. So So there are, as I said, there are various pleasures offered. Even while practicing devotional service, we are offered with so many pleasures, right? And these pleasures are not experienced by people outside. And although they are offered, just because we are practicing spiritual life, we should not get carried away by those pleasures. A foolish man, Prabhupada actually says in the purport that someone may say that, deny, where is God? I cannot see him, right? Then what is the purpose of practicing spiritual life, right? So I know one of my friends who is also a big scientist. Actually, he's an atheist, and he one day when I was talking to him, I was telling him that human life has a purpose. Immediately he said, "Come on, there is no purpose to human life." I was shocked. What is the use of all his knowledge? We have experience. If you are sitting on a table right now, you can see so many items around you, or in your home, you can see so many things around us, right? And show me one thing which is made without a purpose. Not even a single thing, right? Everything is made with a purpose. Then why not human beings? God also created us with a purpose, and the purpose is to attain to the kingdom of God, attain to the higher spiritual consciousness, right? So all the technologies that we use in this world are actually some of the ways and means to attain some pleasure, isn't it? Every technology that we created in this world is meant to give us some kind of pleasure. And if these pleasures are actually taking us away from God, then what is the purpose of this pleasure? Then what is the meaning of this pleasure, right? So it's not that we should not use technology, just like we see Pandavas, again, the same example of Pandavas. They had also technological advancement in their times, right? They had so many celestial weapons, and they also used the comfort of the kingdoms, right? At that time, Yudhishthir Maharaj was performing Rajsu Yagya. Unless he was a king, without becoming a king, how is it possible to perform such a huge yagya on the order of Krishna? So he was using all his advancement, all his comforts at his disposal to serve Krishna. And if we there can be two things. One is we can actually use the facility that is given to us in service of God, or use that facility for our own pleasure. When we use it for our own pleasure, then we become bound. When we use it for serving Lord, then we become liberated, right? So these two are possible. It doesn't depend on what kind of technology it is. It depends on what kind of consciousness we have. And when we have higher spiritual consciousness, and when we are driven by purpose, then it is possible to easily engage all the material technological advancement in spiritual progress, right? In spiritual purpose. Just like when Sugriva actually, again, going back to the same example, when Sugriva was offered all these things by Ravana, he was able to say no, because he had this higher purpose of serving Lord Ramchandra in his heart, because of which he was able to say no, because he knew that, although I can accept all these things, I can accept friendship of Ravana, but that is not going to lead me to the ultimate purpose, what I was looking for. And that's why he was actually he was actually say no to his to the pleasures that came on his way, right? So one may say that, okay, these all technological advancements are my own creation, human creation, right? But then we see that it is not like that. Like, for example, a farmer may be taking credit of growing some fruits, but then who is giving him the seeds? Seeds he did not create. He only gets the credit of giving right environment to the seeds, where the seeds can grow into fruits, right? Similarly, a sparrow or a bird, early in the morning, it is trying to find out food, right? At that time, the food was not created by the sparrow, but the endeavor is there from the sparrow's side to find out where is food. Food is already there, right? The food is already there, and the sparrow is only searching out for food, and she will find the food, right? Similarly, in the modern world also, we can see that, people may say, okay, we got all these technological advancements, but we have to understand also that God has already created this material nature in a way that is conducive to develop all these technologies, isn't it? Like, for example, you take telecommunications, the semiconductor effect. It is working on, the whole telecommunication industry is based on that. The semiconductor, the nature of the semiconductors is already present in the material elements, some of the material elements, because of which we are able to tap into that and able to find out or use it for our pleasure, right? If that itself is not there, then how can we actually create some telecommunication or the semiconductor effect? It's not possible. Those things are already there in nature, right? The special characteristics of certain metals, like nowadays people are looking at graphene and all those things. So these things are not created by man, these are actually created by God. So we should always understand that we are actually surrounded by the products of humanity nowadays, like buildings and cars and all these things. But because of being surrounded by so many products of humanity, we forget the gift of divinity. Krishna has given us these facilities through the material nature. When we forget that, then we actually lose the purpose. So the whole point is that one should not lose track of his purpose in life. One should actually be focused on that. And when we are focused like that, then it is possible to say no to the pleasures that come on the way, or use them for attaining that purpose. Both are possible. Both are good only. You get the comfort, use it in the service of your purpose. That is very good. That means you are still in kind of control of what is coming on your way. Or if it is not useful, one should be able to say no to that pleasure, because that will deviate us from our purpose, right? So in that sense, we need not reject any technology. It is only to use the technology in the right way. It should not make our mind go crazy, like the example I was giving in the beginning, that a person watching so many channels in television, right? He becomes crazy, right? So one should not become servant of these technologies. Rather, we should try to use such technologies in the service of God. And how do we do that? This will be the last section. There are two things. One is recognizing God's gifts or God's presence in everything that we deal with. Openly recognizing with an open heart and trying to be thankful to Krishna. That is one way. And the second is being in the association of devotees who can counsel us whenever we are going on the wrong track. Just like in the case of Sugriva, we see Hanuman and Tara being the counselors, and Lakshman also giving a reminder, right? So similarly, when we are in the association of devotees also, they remind us. They say that, hey, Prabhu, maybe you are going in a wrong track. Please check your purpose. Please check why are you doing this, right? When we have these two things in our lives, then it is very easy to be in line with our purpose, and either rejecting the pleasures that come on the way, which are not helpful to attain the purpose, or using the pleasures that come on our way in the service of our purpose, right? So this is in essence which I wanted to share today. It is 8:21 now. I will pause here. I will stop here. If anyone has any questions or comments, please, you're welcome.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Please accept my obeisances. Oh, sorry. I'll go with Srila Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhu. It's always nice to hear all the points that you cover and bring us back to reality. I also very much appreciated your description of the evolution of the TV entertainment. I could totally relate and see, and how distracted we have become. We have come to a point. Sometimes we sit down as a family and we're flipping through movies. not even able to decide what we want to watch for 20 minutes. And, there has been time where I said, forget this, we can't even decide, and we don't even end up watching anything. So definitely, we're so distracted with so many options, actually. And this reminder of remembering a real purpose of being in Krishna consciousness. One thing that I was wondering on about this comfort point that you brought out, that Prabhupada is saying that comfort actually leads to complacency. But, I also find that sometimes, just the lifestyle, sometimes what you're used to, comfort is also needed to continue your spiritual life, because otherwise things become too austere or too out of your comfort zone, where you end up quitting. So I was wondering if you can also comment on the other side of it also, that is that something as a devotee we should be comfortable and able to continue our spiritual practice, or is that not something to endeavor for?
Yeah, that's a beautiful point, Mataji. I think that's the beauty of spiritual life also. It is finally, in our decision to, it is in our choice to decide how much is too much and how less is too less for us, right? And everyone has a choice to do this. And in, interestingly, in our line of devotees, we see devotees from both backgrounds. Like, for example, like we see Bhima, who can eat a truckload of food in one day, who is accepted as a great devotee of the Lord. And we also see Raghunath Das Goswami, who was only taking few drops of buttermilk every day, who is also a pure devotee of the Lord, right? Similarly, we see the example of kings like Ambarish, or in the modern day Prataprudra, who was living like a great king in so much of comfort, or Pundrik Vidyanidhi for that matter, living as a great, in a great opulence, who is a devotee of the Lord. And we see simple brahmacharis like Gadadhar Pandit, who was a disciple of Pundrik Vidyanidhi. Or we see the devotees like Narottam Das Thakur. So such people are also there, who are also great devotees of the Lord. So we have devotees from broad spectrum, actually. And that's why I think Prabhupada made this statement that, when a reporter asked him that, Swamiji, why are you staying in big buildings? So at that time, Prabhupada said very easily that, if I am staying under for me, it doesn't matter whether I stay in a building or under a thatched roof, right? But if I stay in a thatched roof, you won't come and ask me a question like this. Because, here we can see very clearly what is the purpose of Srila Prabhupada. It was very clearly to preach Krishna consciousness. He was accepting the comforts that are offered to him, right? It was not for any other purpose, right? When we have such kind of clear thought, clear vision that, this is the purpose of my accepting this pleasure. It may be, it can be used in Krishna service, or it can make us comfortable so we can actually serve Krishna better. Then we can actually accept it. There is nothing wrong in that. The only caution in this is that, just like they put conditions apply with an asterisk. So the only caution here is that we should be very careful whenever we are accepting some pleasure for the sake of, keeping us fixed on our purpose. Then we should be very, very cautious, thinking that, they should not bind me. And we should always be grateful to Krishna that, Krishna has given this. Otherwise, without this, it is not possible for me to practice Krishna consciousness. Like, for example, devotees take 2 times or 3 times prasadam every day. Imagine if the prasadam is stale, and if the prasadam was prepared some 10 days ago, and it is just very, very little quantity. And if that is the case every day, then we become very morose also, because we need to maintain our body to practice spiritual life. So that's why we sing this prayer, Mahaprasade Govinde. So we are thanking Krishna there, saying that, Krishna, thanks for giving me this prasadam, which is nothing but your mercy. when I accept it, I would like to, Swaprasad Annadila Bhai, Sayanna Amrita Pavo, Radha Krishna Gunagavo. That is the purpose, right? So accepting prasadam can be considered as, accepting some pleasure or comfort for our body. But then the purpose is Radha Krishna Gunagavo. When that purpose is there in our mind, then we can accept prasadam. There is nothing wrong. But when we lose the purpose, when we lose track or focus on the purpose, then actually that is binding us. Then our 2-inch or 3-inch tongue is dictating what what should we do, right? So I hope that kind of throws some light on what you have asked, Mataji.
Yes, perfect. Thank you so
Thank you,
much,
Mataji.
Prabhu.
Thank you very much. Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Please
Hare
accept
Krishna.
my humble
Please accept
obeisances.
my
All
obeisances.
glories to Guru and Gauranga. Prabhuji, I actually, it's a wonderful talk today. Every time you come on a Sunday and you give a talk, it's very inspiring. Today also, the examples that you gave, one was Sugriva getting complacent, and then Pandavas, how they got themselves from becoming complacent. They're wonderful examples. So I just wanted to thank you for that, and hopefully those examples will be in my memory so I don't get too complacent. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Very much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Any other has any comment? Otherwise, it is 8:29.
Oh, thank you so much, Prabhu. It was a wonderful class. So I was just remembering, I went for some corporate event last week. So there they create this. I mean, it's their driving experience with Porsche's experience center. So they create this black ice thing, and then when you go there, the car takes 360 degrees or more than that, right? So I mean when we drive there, we try to control based on we completely lose track of it, the focus. So he was keep telling, okay, the focus is on the black spot there, right front. So if you do that, your car, you will be able to control it. It doesn't even take the 360 degrees, it comes back. But as soon as we lose the focus there, the car takes control of us, right? I mean, the steering takes control of us. We will try to steer the wheel. I mean, it can go through 430 degrees, the steering wheel. But then, if as soon as if we lose the focus, I mean, I tried 3-4 times. Only one time I was successful. I mean, he was very very clear. The focus. I mean, he was keep telling the focus is that whatever is there in front of you,
Yeah.
right? So, but as soon as the focus is lost, I mean, it has a lot of features, technology features it is giving it. But if I lose my focus, all those other things are useless,
Yeah.
right? Whatever it is giving. I mean, I was just remembering at that time. So you just talked about it. I mean, the purpose of the focus is, I mean, very very important. I mean, the purpose of the my purpose is to go straight, right? Not to go this side, that side. So if I have that goal in my, thing, if I'm not doing anything else, a lot of other things are coming on my way, right? There's so many obstacles comes actually when I was driving there, right? But if that is the goal, then I can use all the technology that the car is providing. I can go there without any challenges. But I mean, it's not easy. I mean, yeah. So you put it very nicely. So many examples. Thank you so much, Prabhu. I was just remembering that and connecting to that.
That's a beautiful example, Prabhu. A lively example, actually.
Yeah,
Thank you
so
for
I was
sharing that.
just thinking at that time, but yeah, that person was so nicely was explaining. He was telling me focus, focus, focus. I mean, purpose is that, but now you mentioned about from our side, so it's very nicely I was recollecting.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very much. So I think we can stop this here, Prabhu.
Yeah, if there are no more comments, we
Yeah.
can.
Thanks a lot for all your kind participation. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Grandhara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyev cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namah. Ananta koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki